Hi there, Christopher here. I'd like to give an intro and an update on where we are with image generation currently. If you're interested in helping, I would super appreciate it. It is one of the coolest aspects of this project, I have to say. But it's also a little bit tricky, as it always is trying to make something cool. So just a quick intro. Saving Satoshi is this sci-fi story set in the future in 2139, and our hero is trying to save the Bitcoin network, and hopefully will achieve it. So we tell the story through text, of course. The copy team put together a pretty nice story. And then we also accompany that with visuals, which are all AI generated. And I assume we're going to have to make some manual tweaks to them as well. Here you can see the homepage at savingsatoshi.com just starts very, very visual and introduces us to kind of this future world. We have these young characters here, boy and a girl, set in the future. So it kind of sets the tone. In our chapters page, if you kind of scroll from top to bottom, you'll see we have 10 chapters. Each chapter is just one part of the story, and takes us in each chapter. Each part of the story is also coupled with lesson content, where people learn something about the Bitcoin technology, network, coding, and culture. So each one has its own kind of a theme going on. And in terms of the quality of those images here, I think the top one is the one that I'm most happy with. Not that it's perfect, but I'm most happy with. And the further you go down, some of these images, they were just like this one. That was quickly generated during a hackathon. So there's a lot of stuff to be done here. It was really just for this initial concept of the site, just kind of roughing things in. And there's a lot more. These can be, I think, really a lot better. And so that's the goal, to have the story that's now written with the characters and the world and the scenes that we want, and try to visually illustrate that and make sure all of the images kind of nicely go together. If we take a look at a chapter, like the first chapter, the way it's usually structured is that we start with a chapter overview page, then we have one or two story pages that are always a little bit of text, accompanied with a visual to illustrate that. So for the first ones, of course, we need to introduce the world, the characters, and the settings. And then later on, it'll be more so about our characters acting inside the world. So here we have our protagonist at breakfast, watching the news, and then they receive a hollow cat. Hollow cat has become kind of a popular character, looks pretty cool. One of the challenges here is, can we actually get the AI to generate this cat again with doing different activities? That'll be an interesting one to figure out. But then once we go into a challenge, you see it's more so text-based interactive content. Here someone is interacting with the terminal. Here they need to go to an external website to find some information and paste it in here. And then in between we have, again, this kind of template screen with text left, image on the right, where we, here we congratulate them, big moment, first challenge accomplished. We want to congratulate them, give this nice image. And then at the end of each chapter, we lead back from lesson content back into the story, and then also onto the next one. So there are story screens, and then there's chapter end screens that are super visual. So the page templates are pretty much set. And all of the other chapters will follow pretty much the same type of pattern. And now it's about going through all the chapters and defining these experiences and finding the right images for them. I think when we create the images, we can kind of ignore the chapter content a little bit, the lessons. It's not so important what we code. It's more so the text story that is important. So I'm working typically in a separate Figma file here. I'll just go over that real quick. On the pages on the left, you see character sheets, and then one page per chapter. Character sheets. So I have found that after trying to create a bunch of different images, that it's very important to have an idea of what this world looks and feels like, and kind of who our character is. So, for example, here, these are some images used in the chapter so far. And you can see the character, it's not perfect consistent. I don't think we can ever get that with AI, but we can kind of come close, right? And that's already pretty good. Here we have the Hollow Cat, or Thomas Vanderpool is our antagonist. We don't really have a good image of him yet. Miners appear several times. Our character flies around in a solo copter, which this visual is way too big, but it's meant to be kind of a futuristic, somewhat low quality, scrappy helicopter for a single person. We probably want to have an idea of what technology in the future looks like. We show city environments. We have this abandoned warehouse that things are set in. And we also have Vanderpool's private island. So as we generate more images, we can kind of expand on this sheet here, and that will allow us to all be on the same page and all generate images that in the end work pretty well together. There are also things to consider, like time of day and lighting. For example, I thought this type of lighting here works pretty well, which is maybe afternoon, late afternoon lighting, where you get this kind of darker atmosphere and you get these beams of light coming through the windows. And maybe another scene is set maybe on a private island where our heroes break in. Maybe that's set at night, of course. The beginning, our protagonist is having breakfast, so the sun's just going up, shining through the windows in the back. There are all kinds of fun things to consider. And then for each chapter, I'll look at the chapter 2 page, because not necessarily because I think the images are the best, but I think the process is pretty good. So I started first by creating a mood board of images from movie stills that I found, images that I found online, just to kind of rough in and try to help figure out what this building, this abandoned warehouse is like, what it could be like, and also find camera angles and compositions. So here, for example, this is the final scene from Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think. Here's a very different scene, protagonist looking in the foreground, but you can kind of get a sense for the environment in the background. Here's one that works more with silhouettes. Here is kind of this top-down angle where it's more like a video game again, like we have in our very first screen here. So that's all good stuff to capture with a mood board, and that can set then the tone of the actual images to be generated. Here I did a combination. I experimented with the idea of photoshopping, doing a quick rough sketch of an image, photoshopping something, feeding it in. Didn't quite work. The technique generally hasn't really worked well for me. I found it much better to just give it a lot of text and work with the text. And sorry. All the images I've created are basically in these files. If you look at something like chapter 1, it's quite a lot of stuff. The way I do this is every row is kind of one investigation. Here I was trying to figure out if we can get kind of a wrist with a holographic figure on top. And so you can see I always have the image, text that used to generate it, and a link to the original image. And then, if you go horizontally, this is a variation of it. I tweaked a bit of text, tweak more text, tweak more text, tweak more text. And then whenever I make a major break in my investigation, I kind of start from scratch. I start a new row. Like here I was looking at our protagonist. This was before the solo copter came into the story, where they were taking the train to the abandoned warehouse and trying to figure out what that scene, what an interesting scene there could look like. Lots of these investigations kind of lead into nowhere, but sometimes they turn into something pretty great. I also started like for the cover image. I do think at some point we need to start photoshopping things, but I do hope we don't have to do too much of that. But we'll just have to see. So I think chapter 1, chapter 2 are in pretty good shape. Chapter 3, that's where, I have some results, but I'm not super happy with them, particularly with how we portray our antagonist, Thomas Vanderpool, and what the environment looked like. So he is on a private island, or he has a private island that he's on later in the story. We could probably also set him always on this private island. Then we can imagine what that private island looks like. In chapter, let's see, 6, I started investigating that a little bit. What does a rich person's private island look like? And then what can we generate for that? Haven't found anything that really resonated with me, but I think that's also really fun investigation. And then if you look at chapter 9 and 10 pages, I really just don't have anything there yet. For some of the other chapters, I've done some explorations, but I think 1, 2, 3 are probably the furthest, and the further you go down, the least advanced those explorations are, because it really just takes a bunch of time. It is a lot of fun, though. It does just take time. So and also one extra thing, for each, it is a good thing to read through the whole story first. For all of the chapters, I pasted, looks like not everywhere, but for most of the chapters, I pasted in the story here at the top, the story that is specifically to this chapter. That's a good thing to read through. I can also share the whole story file. Just to read through that story, get an understanding who the characters are, what the environment's like, where they're going, what's happening, and then we can create a story from that. Now, you haven't heard me talk at all about style, and the first question that I have gotten so far is, what style do you want? I feel like the style is almost the easiest part at this point. What I've been doing is I've narrowed in on style terms that I think work pretty well, and I've kind of stuck with them to really just focus on the content. And style words are pretty much this set here with some variations. Like, for example, I'll take Makoto Shinkai, Takashi Takeuchi, Studio Ghibli. I'll move those forward quite a few times because I like those artist influences more. But other than that, it's really about working with the first half of the prompt, which defines the camera angle, the people in the scene, what they're doing, what the environment's like, describing the lighting, and then just experimenting with that over and over and over again until something useful pops up. That's how I've been doing it. Doesn't mean it's the best. You are more than welcome to find better ways to do all of this stuff. That's just where I am currently in the process. So hope that is helpful. Was kind of a good overview. I really think this is a super cool part of this project that's really unique to this project as well. We get to tell this epic sci-fi story in the future. And we get to illustrate and we get to experiment with all these AI tools. I wish I had more time to spend on it, because I would do a lot more. If you can help, that would be super amazing. And all of the things here, like I said, I'm not a pro on this. I'm just trying to feel this out best way that I can. Bring in your experience, your ideas, your concepts, and then we can just evolve this and make it a lot cooler than it currently is. And I'll leave it at that for now, because I think this video is already 14 minutes long. Thanks for tuning in. And so hope to hear from you with any questions. Thanks.